Have you ever wondered what it really takes to, navigate the highest office in the land, especially during times of just unprecedented crisis and political upheaval?
Yeah, I mean, beyond the headlines, what were the defining moments? The personal struggles, the strategic gambles that really shaped a presidency like Obama's?
Exactly. So today we're taking a deep dive into an oral history of Barack Obama's time in the White House. We'll be sifting through firsthand accounts from his inner circle.
Right. Shedding light on that improbable journey to the White House, the huge legislative battles, and, the profound social shifts that defined his years in office.
And our mission for you, the listener, is really to get a shortcut to being well-informed about this pivotal era. We'll uncover key insights, some surprising facts, and those human stories that often get lost.
Absolutely. So you'll walk away with, hopefully, a richer understanding of leadership under pressure and the sort of enduring impact of these critical decisions.
And these insights, they come directly from an extensive oral history.
Yeah.
We're talking reflections from former White House staffers, campaign strategists, political figures, people who are right
And
there.
we're in the room. So let's unpack this. Where should we start? Maybe his early political journey, those defining moments between, say, 2002 and 2004.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
What's really illuminating, I think, is how early Obama showcased that independent conviction. Long before he was a national figure.
Right, like that dumb war speech in October 2002. He was just an Illinois state senator then speaking out against the Iraq War, which was a stance largely unsupported in Washington at the time, very much against the grain.
And the details are kind of incredible. An aide, Kareem Dale, remembers like 5 to 10 people in a 200-person auditorium.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's only 13 seconds of known footage. He was 41, already had like $10,000 in debt from a failed primary and Harvard law loans. And despite advisors warning him, he targeted these armchair weekend warriors, devising what he called a dumb war and a rash war.
And wasn't his name misspelled in the local paper?
Yeah. The local Daily Herald misspelled his name and even got the quote wrong. It just shows how under the radar he was, but also how strong his convictions were, even then.
Definitely. It really foreshadowed, I think, a hallmark of his leadership following his principles, even when it was unpopular, risking, political capital. It showed that willingness to take those stands.
Then you fast forward just 2 years, 2004, and bam, the narrative completely shifts. That Democratic National Convention keynote.
Yeah, that was the moment.
Totally pivotal. Catapulted him onto the national stage. Suddenly, newspapers were spelling his name right.
It's funny, the anecdotes from that time, like Josh Lipsky, who was a credentials checker, his friend asked him to get Obama's autograph, and Lipsky didn't even bother getting one for himself. Just thought, he wasn't on my radar.
Incredible.
But for many others, like Darian Page, the speech really resonated. He saw it as pulling together that idea that patriotism isn't partisan. We're all Americans. A unifying message.
And then, capping off that year, his Illinois Senate victory speech in November 2004, he brought back, "Yes, we can."
Right, invoking Dr. King, the moral universe bending towards justice, but only if we help bend it that way.
Yeah, that early articulation of optimism, collective spirit really defined his brand. Okay, so let's move to the challenging road to the presidency itself, the 2007-2008 period. Intense primaries, campaign strategy.
Oh, definitely. There are some fascinating lessons there in political maneuvering, like the fundraising chess game David Plouffe described.
Tell us about that.
Well, instead of just announcing their strong first quarter numbers in '07, they waited. They let the Clinton campaign announce theirs first, which were expected to be huge.
Yeah, clear.
Then Obama revealed they'd actually beaten Hillary Clinton in fundraising. Plouffe said it really put us on the map, generated huge momentum.
Smart move. But it wasn't all smooth sailing internally, right?
Yeah.
There was that Punjab Gate incident.
Yeah, Sham Duda talks about that. An Oppo research memo on Clinton had this typo, Democrat Punjab instead of New York, caused a huge uproar. Obama apparently wasn't aware it went out, was furious, and personally apologized to Duda and his assistant, Ravi Gupta.
That tells you something about his values, even in the heat of a campaign. That sense of accountability.
Exactly. And Valerie Jarrett mentions another key moment, a dinner meeting where Obama felt kind of disconnected from the trail.
Right, I remember reading about that.
He apparently said, "This has to be my campaign, and I have to own it if I'm going to enjoy it." Jarrett called it a pause button moment that turned the momentum around. He reasserted control.
Then came a really major test. The Reverend Wright controversy, that goddamn America sermon resurfaced.
A massive political firestorm, just huge.
So how do they handle it? His response was pretty notable.
Swift and strategic. John Favreau, the speechwriter, recalls getting a call from Obama late on a Saturday night. Obama decided right then to give a major speech on race just days later.
Wow, that's fast.
Yeah.
Well-
Obama apparently wanted to use it, make this a moment where I can talk about something bigger, not just damage control.
In the crafting of a more perfect union, that speech, Favreau said Obama gave him this incredibly detailed outline. And Obama's personal edits included that famous line, "I can no more disown him than I can my white grandmother."
So powerful, so personal.
Yeah, Valerie Jarrett said he really opened himself up, explained the broader context of the black church, the black experience. David Axelrod saw it as a moment of triumph, showing the kind of president he'd be under pressure.
Okay, let's pivot to the general election in 2008. The landscape was shifting constantly. McCain picks Sarah Palin.
Right. Joel Benenson notes that initial mama bear surge she had, but then those press interviews.
Yeah, they became legendary for the wrong reasons.
Benenson felt they revealed her true self and undercut McCain's whole country-first theme.
And then the ground shifted again with the economy.
Massively. Herbie Zuskin pointed out how the Russian invasion of Georgia initially made it about foreign policy, but then Lehman Brothers collapsed.
September 2008. Yeah, and Zuskin said, from September on, it became about the economy. The financial crisis just took over everything.
That period was so surreal. I remember McCain suspending his campaign during the crisis week.
The aides describe it as completely bizarre. Jake Levine mentioned the scuttlebutt was maybe a ploy to change the story from Palin's rough Katie Couric interview.
Plausible, I guess. And then the TARP negotiations, Bush calls both candidates to Washington.
Right. And Eric Leser's account is fascinating. He says Obama, Pelosi, and Reid were totally synced up, united, but McCain, McConnell, and Boehner were not on the same page. It showed this emerging Democratic unity versus a more fractured Republican response.
And Treasury Secretary Paulson was basically warning of Armageddon.
Pretty much, which led to that, loose bipartisan agreement to push TARP through, splitting it into two halves.
Then there was the first debate, held at Ole Miss Halls. Jake Levine found the location itself significant.
Yeah, making those racial and historical themes Obama had explored just palpable beyond just who won the debate points.
And during the auto crisis, Jennifer Granholm remembers Obama speaking to tens of thousands of scared and angry people in Detroit.
Right, saying, we don't just need a plan for bankers and investors. We need a plan for auto workers.
Yeah.
Really connecting with that specific pain.
Granholm also played Palin in VP debate prep for Biden, right?
She did. And she said the goal was just for Biden to get a draw, basically. Don't seem condescending. Any gaffe would be a huge loss given Palin's outsider buzz. Delicate balance.
Okay, election night, November 4th, 2008. Grant Park, 250,000 people.
Just an incredible moment. Global reaction was huge. Wall-to-wall coverage, cheering.
And that speech, not just a collection of individuals or a collection of red states and blue states. We are and always will be the United States of America.
Powerful. But the honeymoon didn't last long, did it? The political reality hit hard.
Yeah. Jim Messina tells a story about a Republican staffer telling him super early on, basically, we're not compromising. We're fighting Obama on everything.
Oof. And Barney Frank called it post-partisan depression. McConnell later openly said his #1 priority was denying Obama a second term.
Sets the stage for gridlock right there.
Absolutely, a fundamental shift.
Yet Obama still aimed for unity in his cabinet picks. Hire the best qualified people no matter their politics.
Right, like keeping Robert Gates, a Republican, at defense, appointing Ray LaHood, another Republican, at transportation.
And Hillary Clinton agreeing to be Secretary of State. Josh Lipsky called that amazingly healing after the tough primary.
Yeah, despite, the hard feelings lingering, it signaled an attempt at bringing different factions together. Tom Vilsack was surprised to get agriculture. Arne Duncan for education was seen as unconventional, but valued for his hands-on experience.
Then the economic team hits the ground running, or sprinting, really, crafting the stimulus bill.
Yeah, Brian Dayan and Jason Furman recall returning to a quiet HQ after the election, and boom, facing this massive crisis, the initial $300 billion stimulus idea. Summers and Romer immediately pushed for much bigger.
Obama's mantra was policy first, then politics.
That's what they say. Wanted the team's best analysis first. But politics was always there. Barney Frank's joke about stimulus versus recovery, based on focus groups.
Right. Most people would rather be stimulated than recovered.
Shows that constant tension.
The negotiations were brutal. Needed Republican votes in the Senate.
Ted Kaufman highlights that. needed too. Led to classic horse trading with Lieberman, Collins, Emanuel, and that Arlen Specter deal for $10 billion in cancer research for his vote.
A noble political quid pro quo, as Kaufman put it.
In the end, only 3 Republicans voted for the $787 billion bill: Snow, Collins, Specter. Kaufman called getting even that a ludicrous feat given the resistance.
Wow. Sets the stage for the next big fight.
Yeah.
Healthcare.
The Affordable Care Act, huge undertaking. And internally, apparently, not everyone was sure it was the right move initially. Rahm Emanuel thought it was maybe a mistake with the economy so bad.
David Axelrod admitted being frightened, but Obama insisted. Right. What are we here for?
That was his line. And the strategy, as David Bowen points out, was key. Build on the existing structure. Medicaid expansion, ACA exchanges, similar to Romney Care in Massachusetts.
Trying to avoid the perception of a total government takeover, which hurt the Clinton effort back in '93.
Exactly. And Ted Kennedy's influence was huge, even though he was so ill. Jon Favreau talks about getting that letter from Kennedy just before Obama's big speech,
urging him to see it as a moral issue about the character of our country.
Yeah. And Obama, crafting that speech, was determined to knock down every single one of their arguments, especially the death panel stuff.
They added that powerful ending about government's role, collective responsibility, building on Kennedy's theme.
But the backlash, it was intense. Town halls got ugly.
Alison Schwartz and David Bowen describe people being fed misinformed hearsay about death panels losing Medicare, fanned by Republicans.
Which fueled the whole Tea Party backlash that summer. Huge resistance.
And then Ted Kennedy passed away, and Scott Brown won the special election in Massachusetts. They lost that crucial 60th vote.
Seemed like a death blow for the bill. Martha Coakley, the Dem candidate, noted the shift. It's not the Kennedy seat, it's the people's seat. The hurdle looked insurmountable.
But Speaker Pelosi wasn't giving up. That famous pole vaulting strategy.
If the gates closed, we'll go over the fence. We're going to get healthcare reform passed. Yeah. Incredible determination.
Alongside healthcare, they tackled financial regulation Dodd-Frank. Rahm Emanuel saw it as Old Testament justice.
Yeah, but it was tough. Chris Dodd mentioned Senator Shelby switched signals. Scott Brown criticized the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's power.
The too big to fail debate was central. Kaufman pushed an amendment to cap bank size,
which the administration opposed, worried about the burden on banks. Austin Goolbe clarified their view. It wasn't just size, it was interconnectedness, the smallpox virus dominoing effect.
Got it. One thing that seemed less controversial was the CARD Act, the credit card reform.
Right. Chris Dodd highlighted the abuses companies profiting from minimum payments, calling people who paid on time deadbeats.
And Carolyn Maloney, who drafted it, tells that nice story about Obama making sure she got credit at the signing.
Yeah, pulling her forward, saying, no, it's her bill, acknowledging her work.
Let's shift to foreign policy for a bit. The Cairo speech in 2009. Very deliberate choice of location.
Definitely. Dan Shapiro explained it was about going to the heart of the Arab world to tell hard truths to everyone challenging Israel on settlements, Egypt on corruption. Axelrod called it extraordinary.
Then later that year, the irony of accepting the Nobel Peace Prize while simultaneously planning the Afghanistan surge.
Jon Favreau and Terry Zuclat recall him working on both speeches at the same time, deeply aware of the apparent contradiction.
Using the Oslo speech to talk about the necessity of force, human imperfection, limits of reason.
A really complex moment. And then Copenhagen, the climate conference, described as chaotic.
A total disaster as a conference, yeah, but also a critical moment.
According to Brian D. and Michael Froman, yeah, for breaking down that artificial barrier between developed and developing nations, laid groundwork for Paris, even if the $100 billion aid commitment Clinton brought wasn't seen as enough then.
Okay, moving into 2011 and the second-term push, obstruction continues. Boner's pledge to America.
Explicitly promising ACA repeal, spending cuts, the battle lines were drawn.
Then the tragedy in Tucson, the shooting of Gabby Giffords.
Shocking. Cody Keenan remembers the team, Obama included, writing that memorial speech focused on civility, a president trying to heal and call for better discourse.
But the political fights didn't stop. The debt ceiling, sequestration, Gene Sperling called it an ugly period.
And that August jobs report showing 0 jobs, immense pressure.
On criminal justice, though, there were some bipartisan bright spots. The Fair Sentencing Act.
Big deal. Barbara Lee highlights it. Reduce that crack-to-powder cocaine sentencing disparity, tackling a major racial injustice.
And efforts on bail reform, ban the box.
Yeah, Valerie Jarrett and Ron Davis talked about trying to stop poor people being jailed just because they couldn't afford bail. and giving people second chances with employment.
But there was frustration about the lack of prosecutions for the financial crisis, right? Kaufman drank.
Definitely. They noted a Justice Department report ranked financial crimes low. Eric Holder cited collateral consequences, fear of damaging the economy further by taking down big banks. Controversial rationale.
Social justice issues became increasingly prominent. Trayvon Martin in 2012.
Heather Foster recalls Obama's Matt, "If I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon" line. So personal, so resonant. Jarrett noted how hypersensitive race issues were, but Keenan said Obama was willing to push the boundaries.
DACA also came about around then. How did that evolve?
Cecilia Minos explained it grew out of frustration. They were trying to prioritize deportations, but Dreamers kept ending up in the deportation pipeline anyway. DACA was an administrative fix for that.
Then Ferguson in 2014. Michael Brown.
A turning point. Bonita Gupta stressed the difference. This involved police, a state actor. Ron Davis talked about the problems with broken windows and zero-tolerance policing, sparked huge protests, national debate.
And Black Lives Matter emerged. Heather Foster recalls connecting with leaders, Obama urging staff to help them understand government limits and possibilities. He launched My Brother's Keeper, too.
Right. And the Selma anniversary in 2015, Foster called it priceless. Keenan described the speech as patriotism for grown-ups, arguing the marchers embodied America's character, its imperfect but upward path.
Then Charleston.
Yeah.
The Mother Emanuel Church shooting, just horrific.
Raw grief, Foster said. Keenan recounts Obama deciding, spontaneously it seems, to sing Amazing Grace during Reverend Pinckney's eulogy.
I remember watching that. Unforgettable.
Foster said people felt seen, known by their president, a powerful moment of shared grief and grace.
Let's touch on judicial nominations. Big focus on diversity.
Huge. Christopher Kang and Barbara Boxer highlighted. 2 women on the Supreme Court, Sotomayor and Kagan. Record numbers of diverse judges on lower courts.
But face that same Republican obstruction. McConnell's slow walking.
Bill Douster in Saxby Chambliss described it forcing time-consuming votes on non-controversial nominees just to stall.
Which led Harry Reid to change the Senate rules in 2013, the nuclear option for confirmations.
Right, eliminating the 60-vote threshold for most judges, speeding things up. But the Merrick Garland obstruction later left that sour taste, as Kang put it, a lasting scar.
Foreign policy wins continued, too. The Iran nuclear deal in 2015. Staggeringly complex.
Richard Nephew and Wendy Sherman used that Rubik's Cube analogy. So many interconnected parts require unity from the P5+1, even with Russia, despite Ukraine tensions. Sherman's view, you either get there or you don't. High stakes.
And normalizing relations with Cuba, long advocated by people like Barbara Lee.
Yeah, she praised Obama's decision following Alan Gross's release. A major shift after decades.
Domestically, another huge moment. Marriage equality, upheld by the Supreme Court in June 2015.
David Plouffe tells that funny story about being mad at Biden for jumping the gun on supporting it.
Yeah. Wanted to be Obama's big announcement.
But Obama apparently didn't really care, felt Biden had permission structure, and the White House lit up in rainbow colors. Iconic image.
Then, looking towards the end, Russian election interference in 2016.
Aides like Keenan and Feiner said the consensus was it was serious, needed investigation, but they decided not to make it very political during the campaign itself, a difficult balancing act.
Let's quickly rewind to the 2012 re-election. What was the focus?
Joel Benenson said the Forward campaign was about building the economy from the middle out, raising taxes on the wealthy. A clear contrast.
And you didn't build that comment. Big controversy.
Stuart Stevens and Benenson argued it wasn't really a gaffe, but reflected Obama's worldview about government's role, roads, internet, schools contributing to success, sparked that debate about individualism versus collective effort.
The first debate against Romney was rough, though.
A slaughter, a bummer, aides called it. Caused a poll dip, reset the whole campaign, reminding people Obama was a candidate again, not just president.
Okay, finally, the transition to Trump in 2016-17 must have been a strange time in the White House.
Corey Schulman described the mood as like a funeral. Rob O'Donnell remembers Obama making a joke to lighten the mood, then giving a pep talk about the peaceful transfer of power being essential.
O'Donnell also mentioned Obama contemplating the absolute inverse of his agenda happening.
Yeah, leading to that race to the finish on some key priorities they hoped couldn't be easily undone.
Including that final UN vote on Israeli settlements.
The U.S. abstention on Resolution 2334, Jonathan Feiner and Dan Shapiro said Kerry's speech framed it as being about preserving the two-state solution and Israel's future as a Jewish and democratic state. A final, complex diplomatic move.
So, wrapping this all up, what does this deep dive mean for you, the listener? It really shows the relentless, high-stakes reality of the presidency.
Absolutely. You've heard these firsthand accounts, policy and politics constantly tangled, character forged under intense pressure, leadership often meaning making unpopular choices for what you hope is long-term gain.
And that human element really comes through the vulnerability, the commitment to a vision, even when things got incredibly tough.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with, reflecting on all these complexities. What's the right balance for a leader between their own deep convictions and the often fierce political winds?
And what do these intimate stories from a really transformative presidency tell us about the power, but also maybe the limitations of that office itself? Especially, in an era of such deep division like we see today. Something to think about.